welcome to ScienceWorks Online. First, let us tell you a little bit about ScienceWorks, in case you haven't been to visit us in Oregon. ScienceWorks is a hands-on museum with lots of fun exhibits that help people of all ages learn about science. With us being online, we thought it would be a great way to connect with students and families all over the world. We have a lot of exciting demonstrations and experiments in store for you in the coming weeks. We'll also bring in science experts to talk about their fields and answer any questions. Before we begin our facilitation, let's hear some exciting news from Maya.
Hello Ash, it's me Maya with some more fun, exciting news. So I'm sure that we've all gone to the doctor's office and we've all gotten a shot and it was very painful. They are some of the worst times of my life when I get a shot, but scientists are on our side and they are trying to make needles less painful. Previously, they had decided that to make them less painful, they'll just take up less area and they'll make the needle smaller and smaller and smaller. But obviously, this doesn't work very well. We still feel the pain of the needle. So scientists thought to look to nature, and they studied mosquitoes. I'm sure we've all been stung by a mosquito. I never notice when a mosquito bites me, but I always can feel the spot after they've already come. So they studied why it's painless when a mosquito stings you, and they discovered that mosquitoes have barbs on their stingers, and these barbs are visible to the naked eye, but they look like hairs from our vision. But when we go into a microscope, we see that what they actually are small barbs. And these barbs make it less painful when they stick into an animal or a person, and that animal and person won't feel the sting. So scientists have decided to 3D print these needles that have small barbs in them so that when the next time you go to the doctor, it won't be so painful. And that is our first piece of news for this week. For our second piece of news, researchers have discovered a new early human settlement. These humans are in fact Homo sapiens, and their tooth and bone fragments indicate that they were 44 to 46,000 years old. They were found in Bulgaria, and as we know, in that area of Europe, there were Neanderthals. These early humans were the first pioneers known to date, and they brought their tools with them, their agriculture and defense tools, but they also created a lot of jewelry, and many pendants were found in the settlement. They were shorter than Neanderthals, but they were definitely more decorated. Back to you, Ash.
Thanks, Maya. Now we're going to be doing our DIY project today. I'm Ash, and I'm excited to be working with you guys as we learn how to make a cool drawing machine, and we can make some really fun patterns that use math. So it's going to be kind of a blend of art, math, and science. So if you've ever heard of Galileo Galilei, he's a really champion of science, scientist from around the 16th century. And in about the year 1600, he named a mathematical property called a cycloid. And what that is the curve of the trace of a point on the circumference of a circle. So circumference, just the distance around a circle. And if we take a point on that circle and we were to trace its curve, that form is called a cycloid. If you've ever played with a spirograph toy, that is kind of a way that we can generate different kinds of cycloids. But instead of the circle just running around a straight line, it's going to be rolling around another circle. So that's what we're going to be making today, and it'll be pretty easy and fun. What you're going to need for this project is some cardboard, something that you can get a round object to get a circumference off of, I've got a paper plate here, but you could also use like a round oatmeal can, even a little roll of tape, or a lid, or a cup. So some kind of a round object, and then a smaller object, like a smaller cup or a smaller lid, or just something you can trace around to make a circle. So first thing I'm going to do is take my little paper plate, and I'm just going to trace around it with a Sharpie. And we're going to do this on 2 pieces of cardboard. So, like that. And we're going to do the same thing. And what's really fun is if you get different objects that are different circumferences, you can make all different sizes of rings, and I'm going to show you that in a minute too. So the next thing you want to do is you want to cut out a circle from your cardboard. And oh, I've got a box cutter here, so I can use that. So if you do use a box cutter, please make sure that your adult is okay with you doing that. Otherwise, you can do this with scissors. And we just want to make a circle. And a little bit of a tricky part is we want our circle circumferences to match. And I actually went ahead and got some pre-cut pieces, so I'm just kind of showing you how you could cut this as an example, but then we're going to move to a pre-cut piece. So we're going to just kind of, I made a little kind of a starting line, and now we're going to just cut around my circle here and cut it out. And this is some really tough cardboard today, so what you can do is you can kind of cut it in a way that's not super beautiful, and then you can kind of trim it up later. So you're just going to cut it, and then you can trim it up. But for this project, I'm not even going to finish cutting this circle because I'm going to show you our finished pre-cut frame. What you're going to do with these 2 pieces is once you get your circle cut out, oh, see, now it started cooperating. Once you get your circle cut out of both pieces, you're going to glue them together, and then you'll set them aside so the glue can dry, and you will work on the other part of your drawing machine. So you'll take 2 pieces of cardboard and you will cut a circle out of the center of both pieces. And then you're going to glue those together. And what you're going to wind up with is a little frame that looks something like this. So you have 2 pieces of cardboard, like a little sandwich. And then while your glue is drying, what you can work on is making the smaller part of your drawing machine, and we're going to call this part the gear. We're going to call this the rim, we're going to call this the gear. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to just trace a circle. And what's really cool about these drawing machines, a lot of people think they don't like math, but that's just because they maybe haven't discovered how cool math is. Fable 42 has a really good question of why are we making this gear? And in a minute, I'm going to show you. So what we're going to do, oh, and you know what? I just realized I can do this even easier. So we don't even have to cut out this part of the cardboard because we've got a cup, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to take our cup, and we're going to cut our cup down until all we have is just this thin little piece at the bottom of the cup. And we can make our gear with this. And what we want to do with the gear, Fable 42, is we are going to put a marker inside it we're going to trace the rim of our larger circle so that we make those really cool cycloid designs. So we've got our little bit of our cup, and then we've got some corrugated cardboard. You see how it's got kind of a bumpy edge? What I did was I just took some normal cardboard and we peeled back. See how there's some paper on the top, but we can see it's got a bumpy interior. So you can just peel this paper right off. And you've got this corrugated cardboard, and we want these bumpy teeth because we're gonna use this to make a gear. If you've ever looked at a gear on like a clock or any other, gear bearing object, you've probably noticed that that's got teeth on it. So these teeth are really important because this is gonna be an important part of how we're gonna be able to make these mathematical forms. So you can see I wrapped my corrugated cardboard all the way around my lid that I'm going to use for my gear. Or I could have used my little lid that I cut out, and if I were going to do that, I would have to cut my corrugated cardboard smaller. And then we're going to take some glue, and we're just going to spread some glue down on the back. I'm going to reach over and grab my glue. I'm going to spread it on the back of our corrugated cardboard. And if you have hot glue available, this is a good opportunity to use some hot glue. Be careful because hot glue is really more like super hot plastic than glue. So it does really stick to your skin, and it really does not work well. I mean, that's gonna hurt if it gets stuck to you. Or you could just use some super hard to open glue. Or if your glue is too hard to open, you can also do what I'm gonna do and use tape. But I would actually really suggest using glue instead because you want this to stay together. So we're gonna just be like, imagine I'm putting some glue on here. We're gonna stick this on, and then I'm gonna show you a pre-made gear, and you can see how it actually works. That's right, hashtag imagination. So we would glue this together, and basically, you notice how it's kind of like a gear. So the finished product will basically look like this, and I put a little handle on it. And what do you notice here, guys? There's a hole in the middle of my gear. So this isn't an accident, and I'm actually going to put a second hole in. Because the reason why we want to have some holes in these gears is, remember I told you we want to have somewhere to put our pen. So we are just going to make a couple little pen holder holes in our gear. And you can put different holes in different places and we'll see what happens. So besides putting some corrugated cardboard around your gear, you also want to go to your ring. Remember we cut out that frame? So we've got our frame. We're going to put corrugated cardboard around the interior of our frame. And you may be wondering, Ash, how did you manage to pick up a piece of corrugated cardboard that magically fit your frame so well? What you can do is you can figure out the circumference of your frame by measuring it with some tape. So you can just take a piece of tape or a piece of string and you can put it around the interior of your frame. And you're gonna just put it all on the interior here, press it up, and then you're going to make it straight again. So I can just tear off this little extra piece, and we've got a circle. And when you measure the circumference of a circle, when you figure that out mathematically, you can think about if you were taking the outer rim of a circle and you could kind of peel that outer rim off and lay it out in a straight line like this tape, that is our circumference. And Chris is going to throw up maybe a cool link to a couple of virtual spirographs that you can actually play with online. So these are a couple of programs that you can check out online where you can change the ratios between your outer rim and your inner gear. You can make all kinds of really cool patterns and designs virtually. So what you are going to do with your other piece of corrugated cardboard is you're going to glue it. So imagine that I just glued that. You're going to fit it into your rim after you measured it out. And then I usually put a little bit of extra glue down between the edge of the cardboard and the edge of the corrugated cardboard just to keep it in place really nicely. So what you'll wind up with will be, depending on the circumference of what you used, you can either have a big one, or you can have a medium-sized one. You can have a little one, or Chris is gonna throw up a jumbo-size, easy spirograph you can do outside. Oh, I see he did a giant easy one, and then there's a giant fancy one for people who like to spend a little more time and might want to use some tools. The easy one you can make just with some frisbees and a hula hoop, so it's pretty fun. So, are you guys ready to see this in action? We're gonna see our spirograph at work. Okay. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take off your design if you've already put one on. We're gonna load it up with a fresh piece of paper. And you can also actually draw designs on top of other designs, which is pretty cool. If you've ever looked at the outside edges of money, you might have noticed there's some really fancy scroll work. And if you want to pronounce this like a French person, you would call that guilloche, or you might have heard it pronounced as gouache. That is a really fancy scroll work that is made by basically drawing two spirograph patterns on top of each other. And why do you guys think they put that fancy scroll work on the outsides of money? Does anybody have a guess? It's pretty. Some people, yeah, exactly, Fabled 42. It's to keep it from being counterfeited. So we're going to take our little gear, and I have 3 colors of pens. So which color do you guys want me to use for my first color? We've got orange, red, and blue. Okay, we'll use red for our first color. And we're just gonna put the pen into one of the little pen holes here. And we're gonna start, if we were gonna imagine that our spirograph drawing machine was at a clock, we're gonna start at 12 o'clock. I'm kind of holding it down to hold it in place. And then I'm just going around here with my pen. And even though our drawing machine is a circle, let's look at what shape we're making here. So our drawing machine's a circle, but we're making a square shape. And we could actually calculate the math of what our shapes were going to be. And the way we would do that is if we counted all the teeth on our big piece of corrugated cardboard gear, and we counted all the teeth on our little piece of corrugated cardboard gear, and then we divide them together. We look at what the ratio is, and that's going to tell us how many points we're going to have. So I'm going to use a blue marker for my next one. I'm actually going to try to make this hole just a little bigger, because I want to see what will happen if we stick our marker in at a different position. So now we're putting our marker in at a different spot, and I'm back here at 12 o'clock, and it is changing the position of our figure a little bit. So you can make some really cool patterns with these. You can make cards for people, or you can make wrapping paper. The last thing we're going to check out is we're going to make our third set of lines. Instead of starting at 12 o'clock, let's start over here at more like 7 o'clock, if this were a clock face. And so depending on where you make your design and where you put the holes in your design, you can get all kinds of different figures, and you can just experiment with it. And then where it gets really cool is you can also take different sizes of rings, and you can take different sizes of gears. You can make them work together, and so you can make really cool patterns that are really different. You can see how those different gears and different rings work together. So in just a second, I'm going to show you how the small ring and the small gear did a totally different shape and form. So remember, we said if we counted up those teeth on our gears and the teeth on our rings, we would see different ratios. And you can see different ratios are going to make totally different patterns, even though we're always working with circles. So it's kind of really fun, just math problems and math art that we can make. It's kind of like got a little bit of an experimental quality. So that is pretty much our do-it-yourself drawing machine that you can make. And if you ever want to check out other designs, some of them are super fancy and super cool, but this is a really fun one. And if you're feeling super lazy someday and you don't want to go to all that work, you can even take something that already exists that's round, like a cake pan or a little roll of tape. You just make yourself a quick little inner gear, and you can make these patterns with those too. So I've been telling you guys some of my bad science jokes for these last few weeks, and I've got one for you today. So my joke for today is, why did the bee have sticky hair? Any of you guys have a guess? The bee had sticky hair because it used a honeycomb. Told Chris we need to get one of those symbols so that we can do a bump. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll have some more fun stuff for you next time. Well, that was fun. We hope you enjoyed it. We always like to see your hacks and your projects, so send those to us. You can email them to online@scienceworksmuseum.org, or if you post your project on social media, tag us, hashtag ScienceWorks Online. Don't forget to tune in next week at 2 p.m. Pacific Time for another episode. And until then, have fun and stay curious.